Happy summer, everyone. We are having a really cool episode today with Emma Lovewell. If you're a Peloton person, you know her name well. If you're also into anything fitness or now pregnancy related fitness, you'll know about Emma Lovewell. So we're going to talk to her about her new book, about being pregnant and being a Peloton instructor, exercise while pregnant, fitness while pregnant, postpartum, the whole thing. So we'll jump right into it with Emma Lovewell. Okay, so you're approaching your due date. Is there anything that you're nervous or excited about or dreading with the delivery?
Oh yeah, I'm lucky that I have so many girlfriends that have gone through this and they are a wealth of knowledge and they are so supportive. I've been loving listening to all of these birth stories from friends and even on podcasts from strangers and whatnot. But I'm terrified of the pain.
Right.
I'm I'm excited to like meet this little person and but there's so much unknown. I did hire a doula, which I'm really excited about because she's been so helpful and I'm just really excited to have somebody kind of like hold my hand through this process a little bit more. But there's just so much unknown and I'm somebody who um, likes control and this is totally testing my ability to control anything.
Yeah, it's a wild thing. And I feel like there's so much benefit to hearing all the stories from your girlfriends or strangers. And then there's also like the panic side of it, that if you hear someone having a horror story that you think that that's going to happen to you, and you know the likelihood is that it won't. So it's always interesting when you're kind of gearing up to this moment, because I'm the same way. I like to plan everything or have an idea of what to expect, and you go into this moment of life and it's completely out of your control.
Yes, luckily, some of my girlfriends who have given birth recently have said, like, I'm not going to tell you my birth story until after yours because it was a little traumatic, but you're going to have a great one. So I
Yeah.
appreciate people who are just trying to, like, I'm trying to create a bubble of just like good vibes right now. So I appreciate any of my community that's like joining in on that illusion.
Yeah. That's a um it's a nice thing to be able to kind of have your own energy toward it. Um, I feel like I asked our whole community, our BDA baby community, about questions for you, and I want to hear about your book. And I've learned so much about your journey, which is so interesting and also so gutsy. I love it. I got like fired up hearing about how you even like landed in the Peloton world. But there are also so many questions about fitness and pregnancy, which I love that you talk about, because so many people don't talk about that, especially if you know, are somebody who's already an active person before getting pregnant, and the kind of fear that a lot of different accounts or, you know, different books or things like that put out there about working out while you're pregnant. And you talk about that in an open way, which I love, because I think staying active while you're pregnant, if you can, really helps in your delivery process and also your postpartum. So I want to talk about that, but let's just talk about the beginning of you getting into Peloton, because I think that story to me just embodies who you are as like someone who just took a risk and it really benefited you.
Yeah, I consider myself a lifelong athlete, so I've always been into sports and dance. I was a professional dancer doing, performing with artists and doing music videos and different things in New York. And I got into teaching fitness and also doing some fitness modeling. And I would act in commercials and different things that were like sports related. And so I had booked this one photo shoot, and it was in 2012 or 2013. I can't remember exactly. And it was to be in a Kickstarter video for this new brand called Peloton. And I had never heard of it. And so, it paid okay. And so I was like, let me go do this photo shoot. And the whole premise was I was the rider and I was at home and I wanted to go take a spin class, but it was raining outside. And, thankfully I had this Peloton bike right in my living room. So I jump on the bike and I FaceTime with my friend and we take this class virtually together. And it was a great day. Everybody on the team was so sweet. You know, the CEO, his wife, everybody was amazing. And I remember just leaving and saying like, best of luck to you guys, you know, and they were like, good luck to you too. You know, thank you for a great shoot. And then from then on, I went on to teach fitness for many years. And in the background, I was kind of watching Peloton because then they, you know, after their Kickstarter campaign, they really started blossoming, and they were featured in all these magazines and Forbes and Wall Street Journal. And at this time I had left another spin studio, and my partner Dave and I went to California, and we were trying to figure it out there. We wanted to leave New York and get a change of scenery. So we were in California, but nothing was really clicking for me. Like I wasn't psyched with my job. And so my partner Dave was like, why don't you reach out to Peloton? Why don't you reach out to the CEO? He'll probably remember you, and just ask him like if there's any job opportunities. And I remember being like, I'm not going to just email a CEO. Like, you're crazy, you know? And then he was like, what do you have to lose? And it's like such male energy to just be like, just email the CEO. I remember being like,
right.
What? You know? But I needed that push because I was like, you're right. Like, what do I have to lose? He could just not respond, and that's fine. And so I wrote him this email just saying, you know, I've been watching all your success. Congratulations. Would love to hear if there are any job opportunities there. And he wrote back in 20 minutes. And it was one of those like nerve-wracking things where I sent the email, you know, I wrote the email, I hit send, I closed my laptop and was like, I'm going to go for a walk. You know, that was it felt very courageous. And
right.
So the fact that he wrote back, I was like so excited. And then one thing led to the next. I flew back to New York to do an audition, went back for another interview. And then Dave and I ended up, you know, driving cross country and moving back to New York. And I started at Peloton in 2017. And I was instructor 11. And me and Dennis Morton were instructors 11 and 12. And we were hired together.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that, you know, anyone who knows Peloton and is part of the Peloton community, you know, knows how powerful the instructor is in your whole experience with Peloton. And you took that to a totally different level. And almost, you know, Peloton was obviously the kind of first of its kind doing all of this virtually, but also getting people really a great workout, but also in this whole community. What's that been like for you to be like a part of this crazy, not cult-like community, but also kind of cult-like community, because people are, you know, people that are part of the Peloton world run deep. So
yes,
what is it?
totally.
Has it been weird for you?
Yeah. And so do you have a bike or a tread, or what's your, how do
We
you
have
know?
we have a bike. My husband's always on the bike.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a cool experience because I know when I started, I had been teaching cycling classes to rooms of 50 people, right? I was teaching like 10 to 12 classes a week. It was a lot. All 45-minute classes, you know, and then I go to this virtual side where Peloton's offering beginner classes, 20-minute classes, 30-minute, 45, and everybody's on a leaderboard and you're not really seeing a lot of faces. We still had in-person classes though, so there would be, you know, 40 people showing up for the class, but I honestly had my doubts about it. I was like, how am I going to connect with all these people? How am I going to make an impact? It's so different, you know, going up to somebody and being able to like touch their hand and look them in the eye and like, am I going to have the same impact? And so I was shocked when I started receiving messages from people being like, you are really making an impact. Like, you have helped me so much. You know, I'm going through this hard time in my life, and you have made this like a safe, a beautiful place for me to let out my feelings or feel good in my body again, or, you know, all these different things. And I was blown away because I didn't know how it was going to translate. And so I think it's just so special because, and I keep that in mind when I'm teaching class, that I'm teaching to, you know, an Olympic athlete at the same time I'm teaching to a woman who hasn't worked out in 4 years and decided to like get back into fitness? And how can I make the same class accessible for both of those people who are going through completely different things? And I think that's what the Peloton instructors do so well, is they are really able to just like speak to so many people by also being authentic and speaking from the heart. And I think that's how you get across to people.
I always thought it was interesting that people took these Peloton classes, and for a lot of people, these Peloton classes, or, you know, whether it's 45 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, really, for a lot of people, these were very emotional rides for people. Like, as you said, people would come in with different experiences, different struggles, different walks of life, different fitness levels. And one of the things that has made you so successful is that you've been able to have that connection with people who take your class and allow people to feel seen or, you know, connected to you in the language that you speak while riding, the experience you give people. What do you think it is about a Peloton class that like brings that out? Because it's not you don't go to like a workout class thinking I'm going to cry in a workout class, but oftentimes that happens when people, you know, are in the intensity of a Peloton class with you.
I mean, I have definitely cried in a fitness class before that was not virtual. So
For other reasons.
yeah, no, I mean, lots of reasons, right? But I think it's similar. I can speak to, you know, my experience of having cried in a class before. And I've cried in a Peloton class teaching, and I've also cried taking a Peloton class before. So it's all pretty similar in that I think there's something that happens when you are exerting yourself physically and you are feeling exhaustion, tired, you know, a little bit vulnerable. It's almost like you get cracked open when you're moving your body. I think about, you know, I was a former dancer. So when I move my body and I'm connecting to music and I'm like in the moment, all types of feelings can come up. Like, I've definitely cried in a yoga class before. When they tell you, you know, the yoga instructor puts you in pigeon pose, which is like a hip opener, and it's supposed to like release your emotions. And then the most perfect, you know, sad song comes on, like it just comes out. And I think we all compartmentalize our emotions so much day to day. We're just like, you know, we have to be productive, we have to operate, we have to be efficient. And fitness is just one of those things where you're moving your body and you're giving yourself permission for 30 minutes to just like be in the moment, be in your body, be with music. And it has like an incredible therapeutic effect on people, and it feels so cathartic too. I took one of my friends and colleagues, Selena, she used to teach at a boxing gym in New York City and before Peloton. And I remember going to take her class and I'm like wailing at this bag, and she just said something about like believing in yourself and feeling your own greatness and, you know, taking up space and being powerful. And in that moment, that's like exactly what I needed to hear. And I was just like, through the sweat, all my tears just start coming down.
Oh my gosh.
And I felt amazing. And so if that happens for people, it's so normal, and it can be addicting. It can feel so good that you want more of it.
Yeah, it's almost like you know, for some people who maybe aren't comfortable with the idea of a therapy session or going to therapy, really being able to have these classes as part of your routine, and also a teacher that you really connect with, that so many people have, you know, connected with you, to be able to have that that experience in your routine or your week is such a huge gift. When you were walking through kind of the description of these fitness classes of being vulnerable and emotional, and, you know, I of course instantly thought of postpartum and motherhood, because that really is so much of, you know, how motherhood and the motherhood journey is, especially the postpartum experience. Do you feel like you're going to be extra well prepared for that? Or is that like, maybe you feel like I have too much, or it's going to be different? Has that crossed your mind before, that comparison?
Yes, I am just like everybody else. I am gonna be like, just because I'm just like everybody else, but I also know that I have a lot of tools that I am not afraid to use. So I do see a therapist. I know how much fitness and moving my body helps me. And so I know that I will probably lean on those things postpartum, but it's not like I'm not going to go through the things that every woman probably goes through postpartum. So, and I think about that, a few years ago, I did my pre and postnatal fitness certification. So I am certified in, you know, helping women before and after. And that was one of the reasons was I was watching a lot of my girlfriends go through their pregnancy journey. I'm like the last friend in the group to be pregnant. So I watched a lot of my girlfriends go through this, and I was like, wow, this is such a unique experience. And not a lot of people can, not a lot of fitness people speak to it directly because it's so niche, right? And so some of these times when I'm trying to relate to as many people as possible, talking about postpartum, for example, is like a smaller group of people, but it's so important. And those people, I think, need the encouragement and need the community more than ever.
It's wild how there's, I think historically and even still today, you see different people have different opinions and thoughts on fitness while pregnant. You talk a lot about it on your socials, which I think is so great because I felt terrible in the beginning part of my pregnancies and then felt great. And, I've always had fitness and exercise be a part of my life, just watching my parents have it be a part of their life and kind of setting an example that way. And for me, it's such an important way of how you start your day and getting outside, even if it's with your kids or your family or your friends or doing a Peloton class at home. It's such a big part of it. So the idea that you would become pregnant and that would just have to stop, seems crazy to me. Obviously, people have different medical situations where they can, or you're on bed rest, of course. But if you have a relatively normal pregnancy, being able to stay active and stay in a routine is such an important part mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. I want to talk a little bit about that whole subject of fitness during pregnancy because I think it's such an important part of people's pregnancy journeys and also staying sane and connected to your body when your body is creating a human, and also your body's changing, your hormones are changing, everything is changing, and kind of keeping this consistent part of your life in the fitness area is something that you can kind of control and also implement to keep you healthy and prepare for labor and delivery and keep, yourself strong. So how big of a part of your kind of world has that become since becoming pregnant, talking about it? It was such a big subject for you.
Yeah, what was cool is that I said, a few years ago, I did this pre and postnatal fitness certification, and it was, a weekend long course, and I learned so much, but now actually getting to experience it is a whole different thing. So I learned all about, some of these like symptoms that you might feel or pains that you might feel, and I knew about them in theory, but now actually experiencing them is like a whole different thing. So I think that that's really cool to get to, put a face to a name, basically.
Right.
But yeah, it's just, I'm lucky and happy that I have to work out for my job, because I do actually think that this would be a much harder for me if I didn't have to, I know, like, and I say this in my class, like, we don't always have motivation, but if you commit to something, it makes it easier to do, right? So like commitment shows up when motivation is lacking, because especially in my first trimester, I felt awful. I was super nauseous. I couldn't tell anybody that I was pregnant. So I was going to work and I was teaching multiple classes, and I was just like eating ginger candies like constantly and just trying to like make it through. And I was like, man, I just really hope I don't throw up on the bike. And I never did, thankfully.
Oh my gosh. That would be
but
wild.
it was really hard. But also I feel like that movement and like blood flow really helps you, you know, especially when you're feeling tired and, or if your, you know, feet are swollen or all these things. Like movement is the, you know, the remedy, and in so many ways. Obviously you don't want to overdo it. And yes, as you said, you know, some people have some limitations due to, you know, doctors suggesting that they don't work out or whatnot. But for like the average person who's having, you know, a relatively healthy pregnancy, exercise is incredible. And even, you know, reading about how, you know, back in the day, people used to prescribe bed rest a lot more, and there's really no evidence that shows that bed rest is like helpful for, you know, the general population. But so I just think it's definitely like there is things are changing, right? Like all the rules are changing constantly too. You know, I remember reading about or hearing about like, oh, when you're pregnant, you can't let your heart rate go over a certain, you know, BPM or you know, rate. And that's completely different now. So now it is perceived exertion. So now it's like, if you're used to taking a fitness class and you're pushing yourself to 100%, now when you're pregnant and you have a healthy pregnancy, they just say, take the same class, but just push yourself to a 75%. So they're not using heart rate anymore, which is a big change because so many people were like, well, you have to wear a heart rate monitor. You can't do this. You can't do that. And so I think it's evolving, and people are realizing that exercise is really beneficial for all people, and especially when you're pregnant. And so many, you know, I have this app that tells me like every week, like this is what your baby's doing. This is what your body's doing. This is what vegetable your baby is. And, and a lot of the ailments, they say like, you might be feeling this way. One way to alleviate that is to get up and exercise. It's almost every single, in this app that I'm reading, it's almost every single thing. And a lot of these symptoms, luckily, I don't have. And I think it's because I work out for my job. So I have to. And so I'm very thankful that I have to work out because otherwise, yeah, being motivated while pregnant is tough. Like there are absolutely days where I really don't want to go. And if I was really feeling sick or anything like that, I could definitely call in sick. But sometimes it's just like, I know that there are literally thousands of people waiting for me on the leaderboard for this class today.
Right.
So let me get my butt to the studio. And then I feel 1,000 times better after I exercise.
Have you noticed a big change in your community since being pregnant and teaching your classes and also talking really openly about fitness and pregnancy?
It is pretty cool to see how many women are pregnant alongside me. So there's so many women that reach out or they'll reach out and they'll say like, I haven't told anybody, but I'm like 9 weeks pregnant and I love watching your journey. And, you know, on social media, they'll send me a DM or something like that. And then there's just so many people who, or they just gave birth or they're, you know, as pregnant as I am, and we're kind of going through this journey together. But it is important to me to sort of teach these like evergreen classes too that are just going to, I mean, obviously when you click on my class and you see this like big pregnant lady sitting on a bike, you probably know that I'm pregnant. But I want my classes to sort of speak to many different types of people. And so I continue just to focus on teaching like a good class, and I'm not talking about pregnancy all the time. You know, I do talk about it, but it's not my entire identity.
Are you going to be riding until like the very end, until you deliver?
I think so.
That's amazing. I mean, it's really, you see so many pregnant people who are like, oh, I can't do this, or I'm tired. And then you look at yourself and it's so inspirational. It's like really also gets you excited about the idea that you can do all of these things while being pregnant and staying active. And I just remember when I went to go deliver both of my daughters, like the part for me personally, I switched into, I'm not a fitness instructor by any means, but I almost like switched into the environment wanting it to be like a workout class because it's so physical, the whole labor process. And for me, that kind of mentality worked really well because I was able to stay active in my pregnancies. And I think it's such a gift to be able to give that to people and also show people who aren't pregnant or don't know anyone who's pregnant that like you're still able to teach and relate to people who aren't going through what you're going through, and be pregnant and, carry on like a normal class. So I think it's such a cool thing to be able to do. I want to, obviously talk about your book, which is such a gift of positivity to everybody who has been able to read it and get access to it. How has that experience been like for you? Because book worlds are very different than I'm sure what you have been in previously, and you're still going because it's such a big part of your life. What has it been like for you?
Yeah, and you have multiple books. The thing that I think I was most shocked by is how much work the promotion of the book takes. I
Yeah.
wasn't anticipating that because I thought the hardest part would be writing the book, which was also very challenging, hard. But actually, the promotion of the book was like, oh my God, that took so much energy. I was traveling, I was going to different cities and doing, panels and events and meeting people face to face, and all that was so exciting, but it was exhausting. I did like basically a 2-week book tour, and afterwards I was so tired. But it was really incredible to meet so many people face to face, and also just to hear people's reaction to my book and my stories. It's a memoir, but there's also like some life tips in there. So I love reading fiction, actually. So I love reading stories. So I knew when I was writing my book that I wanted it to be filled with lots of stories that were entertaining, not just like, this is how you do fitness, this is how you live a better life. I wanted it to be like fun and interesting and engaging. And so it was really cool to just meet so many people and hear their reaction. And still to this day, tons of people come to the studio to take my class, and they have my book with them, and they ask me to sign it, and they say, I'm reading it for the second time, or I'm gifting this to a friend because it was so impactful. So it's really cool to, obviously I reach, there's millions and millions of people globally that are part of the Peloton community, but to reach a whole other group of people through writing. And I did an audio version of my book as well, which I feel like just sounds like a podcast or something. But it is really cool to just reach all these other people in a different way and to get a little bit deeper into my stories, because in a fitness class, I'm telling stories in between intervals and gasping for air. And now on a book, I can actually just like take my time to really explain what I mean when I say what I say.
You'll have to write an entirely, new section of it for your pregnancy and postpartum journey, because that's something that I feel like people don't talk enough about, especially in your position, as far as like the physical change, the mental, spiritual, and emotional changes that, go through a woman's body when you become pregnant, are in your pregnancy, and then experience the postpartum part. So that's going to be that can be your thing to do in a year from now.
Exactly. In all my spare time.
Are you going to do a full maternity leave? How does that work when you're a Peloton instructor?
Yeah. So we, and luckily a few of my colleagues have gone through this before, and they've done it so gracefully. So I've watched them, teach classes on the tread, on the bike for 9-10 months, and then watch them go on maternity leave and see how they navigate the whole thing. But yeah, I get 18 weeks for maternity leave, and I'll probably stop teaching like a week before my due date, and so I get a nice chunk of time off. And I've been recording a ton of classes though that we're keeping to release once I'm on maternity leave, so that at least like once a month, maybe 2 classes will drop that I've taught, so that for the next 4 or 5 months there will be more Emma content on Peloton, even though I'm on maternity leave. Yeah.
Are you anxious or nervous about having that much time off where you're not going to be teaching and not going to be at the same, level of fitness that you are at and doing right now?
Yes and no. I'm actually really excited because I've exercised my entire life. And so
Right,
I'm
yeah.
like, this is kind of cool to really be forced to take a break. And, I've talked about this like a little bit on social media, but I'm aiming to do like a confinement period, like the Chinese traditional way of recovery and postpartum, where you really rest for 40 days. I'm not committing to 40 days. I might have to change it to maybe 30 days. I'm going to just see how I feel. But I really am intrigued by that process of like real recovery. I've been doing a lot of research and reading about pelvic floor health, and not just postpartum, but even just as like an older person, all of the issues that come up if you don't take care of your pelvic floor. And so there's so much that I'm interested in, and I'm trying to have a very loose plan, because I know everybody says like you can't really plan everything because there's going to be so many unknowns and so many surprises. But I am really intrigued by the rest and just really recovering and resting and I think that will be challenging for me because I love to move. And but I think I want to challenge myself to really rest.
I think that's amazing when you hear people. I know about the resting theory, and to be able to do that is such an amazing thing to give your body. And also the whole conversation, I always say this, I never even heard of a pelvic floor until I had my first baby, and everybody was like, pelvic floor. I was like, what is your pelvic floor? So it's cool to know that you talk about that and that you are learning so much about it, and that also it's going to be a big part, this summer of your whole fitness program is really focusing on the core and the pelvic floor, and that being a really big part of your education platform for people.
This collection that I've been creating called Cradle Your Core, which I'm very excited about because I'm known at Peloton for my 2 core programs called Crush Your Core, which are 30-day programs where you're working really intensely, 5 to 10 minutes a day, working on strengthening your core muscles. So this is a totally different take on that. And it's a collection of classes. It's not a program, so you can come and just take whichever class you want. And there's prenatal classes and then also postpartum classes that will help you heal your abdomen if you have diastasis recti. They're really gentle. And so I've been working on the prenatal classes that are strengthening your core muscles safely and effectively and bringing mind and body awareness to your pelvic floor. So that I'm really excited about. There's 5-minute classes, 10-minute classes, 15-minute classes, and that's all going to come out July 15th.
That's so exciting. I think that's amazing, especially, whether you're pregnant or you're not, like the whole pelvic floor conversation is such an important one to be having, and to start that, at any phase of your life is such an important part, especially as we get older, to have a strong and sound pelvic floor is a really big gift. And we learn so much about that now because people are talking about it, but to be able to have the classes that you're putting out there is so special. I'm so excited to try them.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, do you have any parting words of advice for me as a new mom, and since you have 2 kids of your own, like what's something that you think might help me and all the other new moms out there?
I feel like you have this fitness mentality and this fitness background, so I feel like you're going into it already with such a leg up mentally and physically, to be able to have that in your arsenal of tools to use in so much of the, the delivery and also postpartum. I think if you're going to do rest at all, do it your first pregnancy, because the thought of doing it if you're ever going to have another child is like, I can't even think how that's even possible. So do it now.
Yep.
And then I think, for me, everybody always talks about sleep and, that you're so exhausted and the breastfeeding part of it and your body healing. And to me, honestly, none of that was as big of a deal for me as, interestingly, the kind of just overwhelming feeling of like, oh my God, I'm now a mother and I have this baby, and just like really sitting in all the emotions that come with this new chapter of your life, being as gentle with yourself as possible, and really letting people and getting comfortable with people helping you is a really, it was for me challenging in the beginning, because I was kind of like, I can do it myself. I'm going to do everything myself. And I took pride in that narrative. But I feel like setting yourself up for success, allowing people to help you, allowing your community to help you. I had my first daughter in the thick of COVID lockdown, so I didn't feel like I could have that part of it. But my second daughter, when she came, I was allowed to have more of that with my family, and that was such a huge gift. And then always reach out for support to the moms that you know. It sounds like you have so many moms in your world that you can reach out to. But always ask for help. Like, always don't have any thoughts about, oh, I'm a mom, I should know this, or, oh, I'm a mom, I should be able to do this. Like, however you choose to heal, parent, mother, feed, change, care for your child is the perfect way for you. There's so much noise on social media that you're doing everything wrong, or you have to do something a specific way, and you don't. And getting rid of that like judgment towards yourself is easier said than done, but it's really important. And then, just like having that support, like it sounds like you found a doula, which is such a huge blessing. We did that, and it's the best to be able to have that. And again, just like always be able to ask for help. But it sounds like you're also setting yourself up for being really present. It goes by so fast. I know everybody says that. Yeah. And then it feels like when you're waking up 100 times at night, it feels like it's going by very slowly. But it will go by faster.
Yeah. That's so true. No, thank you. I appreciate that. And I am definitely somebody who's like, I'm super capable and I can do all these things. So I know asking for help will be a challenge for both my partner and I. And but I love a challenge too, right? So I'm like, if I know asking for help is a challenge for me, then I'm gonna kind of lean into that challenge and really ask for more help than maybe I'm used to. Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait to hear about your labor experience and your delivery experience, because I feel like that, to me, I was much more with my OB and with anyone who was around me when I was giving birth both times. I was like, I literally was like, please treat this as if you are a full fitness instructor and just tell me, like, I wanted that energy. Some people like a different energy where it's like, much more gentle and easy. And I was like, it's like, we got to just focus. And
this is an interval. You got to push through this interval, and then you get to recover on the other side.
That for me, that mentality and that energy really worked for me personally. Everybody's so different. But I think you're going into this so prepared with all of these tools that, I mean, you're going to do great. Like it's, it's the most important thing is to have a healthy mom and a healthy baby, and however you get there is the only way to get there.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, well, thank you, Katherine.
Awesome.
Great speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to Emma Lovewell for such a great and informative conversation. I love all things fitness, pregnancy, positivity, living and loving well, which is what she's all about. So thank you for putting such good into the world and positive energy. And I'm so excited for you.